Awesome. Let's give it a couple of minutes for folks to trickle in, and then we can get started. So today we have presentations. I've linked the um, wait, did I link the right document? Yeah. Here's the meeting notes. If you can put your name in, that'd be awesome. As usual, meeting is being recorded and will be put on YouTube. This we adhere to the CNCF code of conduct as well as the tax security code of conduct. We have two presentations today. We are looking for scribes. If folks can help scribe, that would be awesome. For 1 minutes. All right. Cool. For those that joined a bit into the call, I'm gonna link the meeting notes again. Please put in your name and any updates if you have any. And we're still looking for someone that can help scribe, so would be greatly appreciated. All right, so I think we're almost 5 minutes in, so we get started. We're gonna start. We have two presentations today, as well as some discussion, and some announcements and updates. So let's get started. I think the first thing I want to do before we get into check-ins and things like that is I wanted to introduce Andy. I think Andy's on. Andy, are you?
Martin.
Andrew Martin, yeah. Are you available to be on voice? Are you
Hello.
traveling?
Yes, indeed. I'm just at the end of an all day, so I'm just located in the vicinity of the bar. But yes, indeed, I'm here and active.
Awesome. Yeah, I would just
Welcome.
want to just like take the opportunity for folks to say hi to Andy, as you've seen on the mailing list and on Slack. Um, Andy is our new co-chair of tax security, and we are looking forward to a lot of ideas and plans that he has in mind.
Yeah,
Glad
thank
to
you
have
very much.
you, Andrew. Welcome.
Much appreciated, both. I think where I can bring some value is offensively, in metaphorical and not literal terms, and of course over on this side of the pond, there's plenty of activity that we always enjoy collaborating with people in on other continents, and yeah, really trying to thread everything together and bring some of the government aspects to really pursue the general security of open source. Very nice to be here.
Awesome. Thanks, Andy. So I'm looking through the list. I want to make sure I see potentially a few new faces. Is anyone new that wants to introduce themselves? Just a real quick introduction.
So we have shooting, Sam, Chip, and myself from Caverno. So we'll kind of do our introductions when we present.
Okay, awesome. Sounds good. We'll get to that later then. Okay, so just gonna go through updates that we have from some folks on the call before jumping straight to agenda. So Chase, you had a update on the audio white paper.
Yes. So, hello from the past. Yes, this is still a thing. It had gotten away from us for a few reasons. We had one person doing audio production, and that's a hard place to be. And anyway, long story short, we're trying to get it out the door because it's pretty great. I put a link to the paper where we're mocking up the draft announcement, whatnot, and the narrative that we're going to try to push is basically, hey, 2.0 of the paper is coming. Do you need a refresher on 1.0? Why not listen to the audiobook version? You know, in terms of accessibility and whatnot, it's a great thing to get out there, even if it's later than we would like. If you are interested in helping to craft the language on blog posts, et cetera, please do so in the doc. And if you want to listen to the recordings, we can get you that. Wouldn't mind a few quality control listens through. Right now, we think we have about one air, which we're kind of just letting ride to get things out the door. So anyway, yes, we're still here. It's still a thing. And thanks to everyone for their patience.
Awesome, thanks, Chase. And you said you wanted folks to kind of take a look at it if they wanted to. How can they get a hand on that?
There is a security audio. What's the name of the channel? I can't remember. It's Tag Security Audio channel is the channel that we've been coordinating in. The update text in my kind of line item is a link to the document where we are putting everything together in writing. All comers are welcome, and anywhere you could lend a hand would be great.
Awesome. Thanks, Chase. Next update we had Aradna. Do you want to talk about serverless?
The serverless paper has been out and has been shared with everyone. If you still have some comments, you can add to the paper, please. We will wait for another week before we just go ahead and publish it then, because we've not had any comments on that.
Has this been sent
you
out
know.
in RC or just
Yeah,
like
it
private
was sent
comments?
out. It was sent
Okay.
out. Yeah, I think
Awesome.
3 weeks ago it was sent out. So.
Could you forward the message to maybe Chris A that he can help send it out if he hasn't already sent it out to the CNCF list?
Okay, I will.
Yeah.
Send that across. Thank you.
Awesome. Lots of deliverables coming up before
Yeah.
KubeCon.
I
So you
had
shall
another
assign your homework.
discussion item that I wanted to bring up, but I don't know if this is the right time. Maybe another after the presentations.
Yeah, if we have time after presentations, maybe we can
Okay.
touch on it. If not, we'll unless it's urgent, we can move it to
No,
next.
it's not urgent. Thanks.
Okay, cool. And Michael, do you want to give a quick rundown on what we're doing with supply chain with the proposals?
Sure. Can you hear me right? Okay, cool. So we are looking for proposals for work for the supply chain security working group underneath the security tag here. I think we have a couple of proposals out there. The one I wrote was for sort of saying, hey, can we start to apply those best practices rules and secure software factory rules against either an existing CNCF project or create a new CNCF project that's sort of an example project with that follows all the best practices. So that's one proposal out there. I know that we're looking to kind of get a couple other others in there before moving forward with any work. That's, I think, on the proposal side. Anything else you wanted to add on that one, Brendan?
No, I think we are actively kind of in the brainstorming phase. So if you have any ideas or want to share a little bit about, what keeps you awake at night with supply chain,
Yeah.
our group meets on Thursdays at 11 Eastern. And also you can join the Slack channel. And leave some comments there as well, which I will put in the chat.
And one other sort of quick sort of collaboration announcement. So SSF, which is a tool that some of us here at City wrote up and open sourced in collaboration with the OpenSSF, it's sort of a implementation of the CNCF Secure Software Factory. We've sort of contributed that to the OpenSSF, and we're going to start having community meetings on that starting Wednesday next week, every other Wednesday, starting next week at 10 a.m. Eastern time. I'll just I'll post in the chat some of the details. But if folks wanted to join, figure it out, whatever, more than welcome to join.
Awesome. Thanks, Michael. All right, so I think let's jump straight to presentations. We're to like 15-20 minute presentations. We want to leave enough time for questions. So let's get started. Luigi, are you good on your side?
Yes, I can share the screen.
Awesome. Yeah, so Luigi has been working on security insights, which he'll tell you more about on the OpenSSF group that some of us here are also cross-participating with as well. So lots of cross-pollination there. So yeah, go ahead, Luigi.
Thank you. Yes, I would like to present Security Insight. It is a project where the working group in OpenSSF identifies security threat in open source project have contributed. I mean, I and the group are working on this project. I have worked on this project in the last month, and it will be a standard. Machine readable format for open source project, but not only. So for project, for repositories. And it is the original idea was based on security.txt. We have seen that security.txt worked very, very well for website. It is easy to find. It is in the same path for every website, contain the same information, and it is also machine readable. So we have seen that for the open source project, there isn't a similar standard. There are a lot of different approaches to this problem. For example, security.md, GitHub now they offer directly a tab in every repo, but not every open source project is on GitHub. There is also other service or maybe self-hosted open source project. And in addition, not there is any formal procedure to add some information like the conduct of the code of conduct or other important information like security content and similar. So security site would like to offer a machine readable file that is also human readable, so a YAML file, because YAML can be easily edited by machine, can be easily read by machine, but also by human. It is easier than a JSON file, and it can be converted quite quickly into a JSON file. And it would like to add a lot of information about the project. So, for example, the core maintainers, where the project is deployed, from which source you can download the original packages, for example, NPM or other similar stuff. There is the security policy, the threat model, and all the document that can be helpful to evaluate the security or the security standard of a particular project, for example, also the CI. It can help also to reduce the false negative from the scanner, because now we have some scanner that help us to evaluate the project, but they can generate false positive because, again, we haven't any standard to define where is the CI for security or where is the security policy or something similar. We have already seen that the open source community have tried to improve the security area, especially improve the observability and the visibility of the security standard that the open source project have. We know that for website, it is quite easy now. A lot of websites use security.txt. The security team in a different company are adopting this approach, and it works very well. And we are now seeing also services that start to collect by scraping information directly from this file. There are different open source organizations that have the information that we want to find in every repo, but in a different location. Some organizations have, for example, the security policy directly in the repo. Other have just a link to the website. Other have just a page in the website and not any information in the repo because they suppose that you move to the website and so and so. YAML file can be scanned by scanner or by tool that want to collect information. This can help the community in two ways. We can start to create a database that with some consistent data in an easy way because we have a file. And in addition, we can reduce the false positive because sometimes it's not easy to for a scanner to know where a particular CI script or CI flow is in the repo. So they just scan some common pattern, and if the file is not present in this path, they just say that there isn't any CI. But we are seeing that also our scanner tool provided by OpenSSF sometimes have some error or some false positive. In addition, a similar file is independent or universal because it doesn't depend by the platform like GitLab or GitHub or similar Bitbucket. So you have a repo. The repo are just a set of folder and file, and you can just add this file, and then the scanner or the people can easily find it because it is in the main directory of the repo. There are different use cases. For example, we know that the final user that can be a maintainer of another project that and a project has dependencies, for example, or just people that want to create a new open source project, or people that work, so developer that work in a company that want to use open source, want to have a good overview of the security, or want to have want to know the contact and who are the maintainer to evaluate if the project is sustainable. And we have the scanner developer, so people that want to create scanner or script to collect information related to the security standard of all open source projects. There are a lot of scanner, but some are paid service, some are free. But I mean, scanner code, scanner repo is an important part to automate security, and a similar file can help to reduce false negative. There are the security researchers that sometimes want to just communicate a potential vulnerability, but they don't know if they need to open a GitHub issue or if they need to write an email, what are the vulnerabilities that a particular project accepts, because maybe not every bug is a vulnerability for the maintainer. And so this is important. And in addition, we have that the project maintainer want to receive vulnerability, want to communicate with the researcher, but at the same time, sometimes they don't know how to do. And especially they would like to have a clear way to communicate what are the most important vulnerability to reduce the number of false positive repo they receive by the researcher or something similar. So we know that the community is interested in this sort of standard, and not just the developer or the maintainer, but the entire security community, from the maintainer to the security researcher. Of course, we have evaluated also the risk related to implement a similar standard in the project, especially in the open source project. In the GitHub repo, you can find the threat model we have created. You can contribute to it, of course. It was created using OWASP Threat Dragon, if I remember right. It was a good tool based on Stride. We have identified at least 5 potential risk related to the security. One is the supply chain. So, for example, the maintainer had a link in the YAML. I don't know, the link to the PDF that contain the vulnerability assessment or something similar, and someone can, the attacker can obtain the control of this third-party source. We have false information in the security insight, of course, because if there are scanners that evaluate and maybe use a score to evaluate the security of a project, someone can be, the malicious maintainer can decide to add false information just to obtain a better score in the from the scanner, and this way maybe having a better position in some database that offer project according to the security. And there is the risk that the maintainer can share private information before maybe having a fix. So maybe you share a vulnerability report before having fixed the vulnerability. There are, of course, the malicious pull requests of someone, third-party actors that try to merge, that open a pull request and hope that maintainers merge it in the repo, and the pull request contain false information. And of course, there is the risk of missing pull request review or lack of in the review process, because for big project maybe it's not so common, but when an open source project is handled by just one or two people, maybe the review process can be not so well defined. And I mean, people contribute to the open source in the free time, so we can understand this, but it is a risk that we need to consider. At the same time, the advantage seems to be more than the risk, especially because similar risks are technically in every kind of open source project that we have. What are the risk, the failure risk for this project? So for this standard or specification that we would like to provide, or convince the open source community to follow us. There are two main risks. One is probably the missing or poor adoption. So not enough open source projects start to adopt it. And this means that also if some open source projects have the file, good, but without a large adoption, we cannot have enough information about the project. This means that scanner don't spend time. I mean, the scanner developer don't spend time to add a support for this file and so and so. We have already seen that people have tried to implement some security standard for open source, and for some reason they failed, or they don't achieve the best result. But at the same time, we are lucky, in my opinion, because OpenSSF is now very big. There are a lot of big company and people that want to contribute to open source, so maybe we can coordinate better to have a good launch of a similar project. And then there is the security concern. We need to convince people that adding this file is not a risk for the open source project. Especially we need to convince the scanner developer that they can trust, I mean, according to some rules, but they can trust to the file. And so they can obtain more information or more detailed information than now just scanning some common path or just scanning some common file like the dependencies file. Using this file, we can know, for example, what are the contacts, where is this distributed the packages, or what is the last review, or something similar information that can help us. Or especially the CI, we can have clear information about the CI. So how we can proceed now? In my opinion, we can with OpenSSF, but also with this organization, we can proceed, but especially with the OpenSSF, because I work in the OpenSSF, but it's presentation. And I mean, we can proceed in this way. We can coordinate different groups, because this project is definitely not a technical project, but a cross-team project, because we in OpenSSF, there is a working group for the scorecard that is a scanner to evaluate the security of a project. So we can convince the scorecard team to support this file and support and read these files to provide more information about the project. Then we need to provide a web page or a CA command line tool. I mean, a web page means just a JavaScript page, a form where that help the maintainer to generate the YAML file. But it is quite easy because we already have the YAML schema, and the schema contain already the regex, for example. And then we need to convince the important open source project to deploy to add this file in their repo. In particular, in OpenSSF, there is the Alpha Omega project, and in the Alpha project, then the Alpha project are one of the most important open source projects that exist. So maybe if we can convince the Alpha project to add a similar file, and if we convince the OpenSSF members that have open source project to add this file, probably have convinced the most influent open source project, and this means that other one just follow us because we have this standard. And for this reason, I think that we are in a good position to not fail, because at the moment OpenSSF is the point where a lot of company and people that love the security and open source are connected, and we can organize a good roadmap where we deploy this file in every important open source project that we know. And if we deploy this file both in the Alpha project and in the OpenSSF members open source project, we have a baseline. So we know that at least these projects are following this standard, and we can go public with a blog post, with a news on internet to say, hey, we have this file, scanner can obtain information from this file, you can create database, it is easy to generate, it is easy to maintain, and technically you can also automate it is a YAML file, so you can automate a lot of check on this. And this is the project, honestly. Thanks, and if you have any question, please.
Awesome.
This was the
Thanks,
presentation.
Luigi. Thanks, Luigi. Yeah, let's open up for questions.
So do you have a link to the scanner that we can try it out?
The scanner is the scorecard. So
Okay.
Give 1 second. This is the, I mean, I said scanner, I don't know if the right term, is a tool to evaluate, to collect some information about open source project, technically just GitHub repo. And at the moment, it can evaluate also if a project contains the CI or CI test, but at the same time, there are some false positive. We have seen that from Apache Foundation, they have tweeted 1 year ago that the scanner was not able to identify some tests, some good policy that they have. And for this reason, we are proposing this. I'm working on this security insight project that is a YAML file. So the scanner, it's easy for developer implement a feature to scan the file. And at the same time, it is easy for maintainers to add the file because it's not so different from a security.txt. Technically, it is just a sort of new layer, because you don't need, if you have you already have all the policy, all the link, you don't need to rewrite the policy or move file. You just need to add the link to the YAML file. In this way, people don't need to spend time to recreate an entire infrastructure just for policy. They just need to add the link in this file and add this file to the main repo of the project. And in this way, if you are a big organization, you can just create some script that can create the file with all the links, a sort of template, because it is a YAML file. And if you are a small project, you can start from zero, of course, but the file can help you to understand what are the priority, what is important for security. There is some minimal requirements. So the YAML file require that the YAML schema require that your YAML file contain some voice, and then you can implement also the optional. In this way, we can help also small project that just want to add more security feature or information to grow in a human way. Because I mean, if Kubernetes is a very important open source project, but there are a lot of people that contribute to it. When you are alone and you start with a small project, and we have seen there are a lot of critical small projects like Log4j. Maybe you want to go step by step.
That's
So-
good. Thank you.
Sorry.
Yeah, we have two hands up, so go Michael, and then Frederick.
Sure. Yeah. So a couple things. One is I think SSF under the one of the projects under the Open SSF. We've actually been wondering if there is something like this, because we would like to be able to kind of also use that as part of the process that we're building out, right? Like, hey, I want in my CI/CD to validate that there is one of these YAML files before I actually pull down the code. So it'd be useful to sort of maybe include that in our own project and sort of act as testers for that sort of thing. So we love to be able to do that. Where can folks get more involved? Is it which working group was it again?
I mean, I am in the working group. I mean, the name is very long. It is yes. 1 second. Security, identifying security threats in open source project. We started this project in this working group because from this working group, the project Alpha and Omega were born. So after Alpha and Omega project, that is a project that is still ongoing, but we have proposed to work also on this YAML standard. At the same time, I have written already in the scorecard channel, because I think initially this working group worked on the metric dashboard, metrics.openssf.org. Now we are deprecating it to create a new dashboard that have more information. And if we want to have a dashboard, this means that there is a scanner that can collect information, that is the scorecard, but not only. And a YAML file can help scanners to collect information that then can visualize. So the working group is identify security threat in the open source project, but I think that to achieve the final result, we need to work cross team with at least the scorecard team and probably also with the vulnerability disclosure team, because we are adding information also about the vulnerability disclosure. We are just adding contact and links, but it is better if we are aligned. And I don't know if I have answered your question.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I think just understanding how we can get involved and provide, let's say, feedback as we testing it out. If we find anything, want to know where to go to ask questions.
I will write a message in general, so in this way, more people can have more visibility on the project.
I think Chase is the link to get that repo. Is it that one?
Sorry.
I think Chase linked the GitHub repo. Is it that one? It looks like it's that one.
There is this GitHub repo for the project, but it is for now it is in my personal account. I would like to.
Oh no. I think Chase linked the actual.
Sorry.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. Frederick.
So out of curiosity, is every single check in this particular thing designed to be automated, or is there any manual attestations that occur that perhaps get populated through the YAML file or some other mechanism?
At the moment, there are. I'm not totally sure if I have rightly understood the question, but I tried to answer. We have just at the moment the YAML schema. This means that if you start to write the YAML file, you have the schema to test it. At the same time, we can automate how the maintainer or someone can create this YAML. We haven't at the moment any command line tool or JavaScript page that can help people to automate the creation, but it should not be a problem because we already have a schema. At the same time, there are some points or some voice in the YAML that is not easy for this. It's not so easy to understand if the scanner can check or not. For example, we have the security policy there is a voice to add the link to the security policy. The scanner can just check if the link return a 200 OK response, but this doesn't mean that in the link there is really a security policy. Of course, the scanner cannot read the security policy. They can just check if the link is correct. So the scanner can automate some check also on the YAML file, but being this file also human readable for open source project, if there isn't something that is wrong, people can report it directly to all in the open source project or publicly. So part of the security is related also to the community effort, and part of the security can be done by scanner, just checking the link. But about the contact, we cannot know if a maintainer had a typo in the contact or similar. Or a human can easily identify this, a scanner probably cannot. It is important to know that every edit that is done to this file is tracked by the hash in the commit. So technically, we can also investigate if someone tried to abuse this file in a particular open source project. I don't know if I answered to your question.
Yeah, that answers the question. And one quick follow-up to that, just to close the loop, is there an easy way to tell, like, there's certain things that controls that, like, as a developer, I have to attest certain things, and I can see there's several ways to check if whether the developer attested it or not, which could be something in YAML. Maybe there's some presence of a signed thing, a signed commit, or so on. But at the end of the day, it's also useful to be able to tell, like, which controls are automated. Like if I ran a source code scanner on it, like that's trivial. We can say this was automated. We discovered here the findings, source end, feed that in. When it comes to something that is more manual, it would, if you don't already bubble up information on which checks were manual or which ones are automated, like that would be a useful differentiator, because for the manual checks, that's a risk for somebody to get something wrong, or for there to be differences in how things are done. And it would be a good place for, like, me as a consumer to be able to help assess my risk.
Okay,
like we need provenance for this as well.
it is a good suggestion, and maybe you can open an issue directly in the repo, because I mean, usually I update this every 2 weeks. I don't know if for the first version. I mean, we have there is a section for the test with some information about the test, but as I have honestly never thought about manual test, so I haven't considered manual test or something similar. But it is a good point. So I need to think how to add this information. At the moment, yes, I need to think. Sorry.
Okay, so thanks, Luigi, for your presentation. We're just about time for the last presentation. So thanks so much. I guess we can reach you on Slack. I'll open up an issue in the Security Insights repo. Yeah, thanks so much, Luigi. And I think now we're going to pass it on to Jim and all
right.
the folks on the call.
Thank you. Thanks, Brandon, for having us. And let me share my screen. So while I'm doing that, just to quickly introduce myself for those who I have not met, I'm Jim Bagwadia, co-founder at Nirmata and also a maintainer on Kyverno. With me today, I have a few of the other Kyverno maintainers. So I'll let Shooting, Chip, and Sam quickly introduce themselves. Shooting, you want to go first? Shooting, you might be on mute if you can hear us.
Sorry, I guess I was on mute. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Okay, so hello everyone. This is Shooting Zhao from Kyverno community, and I'm currently working as a Kyverno maintainer, and I'm leading the project development as well as managing the releases. So yeah, happy to join this meeting.
Hey, my name is Chip Zoller. I'm also a Kyverno maintainer. I am currently a lead system architect at Dell Technologies, but on the Kyverno project, I handle a lot of the community documentation, curate the policy library, and user experience related things.
Hi, I'm Sambhav Kothari, also a Kimono maintainer. I work at Bloomberg in the ML platform team, and I work on the image verification and supply chain side of things in Kimono.
All right. Yeah, so just quick background. I think I was trying to go back and remember when we had last presented Kyverno in one of these sessions. I think it was probably about a year or year and a half ago. So of course, lots of updates, lots of good progress since then. So just quick summary and timeline of where we are, and one of the milestones we are in today is we have applied for incubating status. Part of that is going through, of course, the due diligence, other things, but really happy to kind of have seen the community grow, the traction grow, and as we'll see, the features and use cases as well, right? And certainly a lot of and one of the things we've also participated in is the security self-assessment and the security pals program. So that helped us quite a bit as well. So just to kind of kind of recap on the project goals, what we aim to do at within the Kyverno community and project. So our main focus is securing, automating Kubernetes configurations. Kyverno is designed and built for Kubernetes ground up. So it is able to leverage Kubernetes schemas, structural schemas, to be able to, so policies in Kyverno very much look like resources in Kubernetes. In fact, a policy for a pod can be a fragment of a resource declaration with some constraints, with some rules in place. So that makes it, fairly easy for folks who know resource structures to be able to declare and manage policies. You can also use all of the standard tooling like Customize, et cetera, to patch policies, use GitOps to manage and administer policies, things of that nature. Kyverno also, can leverage or any Kubernetes pattern like owner references, pods and pods controllers, things like that, because again of its focus on the Kubernetes space. And like I mentioned, and based on that, and we're always also looking to integrate with other CNCF projects tooling to just make it easy to consume, easy to use and manage. So some of the key use cases we see, and by the way, for this, because we have limited time, we didn't prepare demos. There's a lot we can go through, but certainly happy to point to links or set up more follow-ups on any of these. So pod security tends to be one of the most common and most popular use case. So this is where folks are, if they're replacing PSPs or looking at enhancing pod security admission, to use Kyverno policies. Like Chip mentioned, the policy library. We do have a full set of pod security, so both for restricted as well as baseline, and these are tested and validated across multiple Kubernetes releases, right? Workload security, similar to pods, but more at the namespace or deployment or service level. Several policies exist for enhancing, strengthening configurations, preventing standard misconfigurations. So I know Rory is also online. He's helped with quite a few recent CVEs and policies for those. And we, if we get time, we'll go through the library and point to some of those, but several, best practices as well as, policies to just restrict not frequently used configurations and enforce various restrictions. Multi-tenancy happens to be another very fairly popular use case. So Kyverno, besides, as we'll see, besides validation, can also, generate and mutate resources. So multi-tenancy, namespace-based multi-tenancy is one other use case. Any other, of course, it's not difficult to write a custom webhook, but it is difficult to secure, scale, manage, several webhooks across several clusters. So replacing custom webhooks we see as a very popular thing within the community. Folks who might have written, kind of one-off webhooks and are looking to now retire those with something like Kyverno. And then software supply chain security. So we've collaborated with Michael and team and several others within Sigstore as well as OpenSSF to integrate some of the Sigstore tooling, and we're looking to enhance and expand some of these use cases as well. So just quick, again, on the architecture, so Kyverno is an admission controller, is the main deployment form factor. It also comes in a CLI form factor, which can be used for static analysis offline, and it does background scans. So there's three main modules or controllers, if you will, right? So there's the webhook, which receives, of course, mutating, validating admission requests. There's the generate controller, which is responsible for the generate. This is getting refined to also as with some of the new features, but currently in 1.6, it's the generate controller, and there's a policy controller which manages policy reports, changes to policies, to re-trigger scans, things like that, right? So the three kind of things, and the goal is to cover everything from the build CI/CD pipeline to runtime, to also background scanning, with Kyverno itself. And that's, so we typically see usage across all three. In terms of the artifacts itself, there's, as you can probably expect, there's, the standard artifacts. Kyverno does automate a lot of the, management of things like certificates for the webhook configuration, even fine-grained webhook configuration management. That was one of the new features in 1.6, and we continue to kind of refine and expand on that. Other things which can be automated, we tend to typically just simplify and make it easy to install, easy to manage, but of course with things that can be replaced as needed. Just quick view of a policy, right? So every Kyverno policy is a set of rules, and each policy is completely atomic. So it doesn't interfere, or you cannot replace one policy with another, or you cannot override. But each policy is executed in isolation, and within the policy, rules are in an ordered set. So you can match and exclude resources. Once a rule is matched, it will either mutate, verify, or validate, or verify images, which acts as a mutating controller because it can replace image tags with digests. And then you can validate resources within the admission control chain. And of course, in the background, Kyverno can use admission controls to trigger the generation of resources, right? So fairly simple structure, and a very simple example here of a policy is, a few things to point out. So this is in enforce mode. So it will block, a request if it doesn't match the policy requirements. You could put it in audit mode. And then really the bulk of the policy is line, I guess 14 through 18, where it mimics again the pod structure, and it's saying that the label is required with this wildcard syntax for saying that you have to have at least one character, and it doesn't matter what the value is. We're not checking that here. That can be done, of course, but here the goal is to check that label exists. Some features, and I think is again quite a lot of things that have been built over time, but just to quickly run down. So validating configurations, like we mentioned with audits or enforcement. Mutating supports both RFC 6902 JSON patches, as well as customized style strategic merge patches. Generating and synchronizing configurations within the cluster. So you can have a source resource, you can generate from that, clone and generate, and across namespaces. So several use cases for that. Verifying, image signatures in toto attestations. So for image signatures, currently cosign is supported. We're certainly open to other formats, etc. Based on requests and popularity, but the first integrations are around cosign. There's also, Sam contributed a feature which is pretty cool on being able to verify image config data, so any OCI data, right? And which can be pulled like labels, user information, volume. So that is also very useful in validating how an image was built. Kyverno has events as well as policy reports in cluster. So policy reports are namespaced or cluster-wide. There's a Prometheus, metrics, Grafana. There's a feature in flight to move this into open telemetry, but currently Prometheus is supported. There's a policy reporter component for a graphical viewing of events notifications, and then, like I mentioned, a CLI for static analysis or offline testing. The CLI is all pretty awesome in terms of testing as well. So if when you're writing policies and you want to kind of test, there's a lot of goodness and features in being able to mock data and unit test policies through the CLI. So one thing to quickly mention, I won't go through this whole list, but Kyverno, very often we get the question is, okay, it looks nice for simple things, but can Kyverno handle complex policies, right? And the answer is absolutely yes. I mean, there are, in the policy library, there's several examples of very complex policies, but the idea is for simple policies should be simple, and then as you need complexity, you can layer it on, right? So there's several features Kyverno supports, which are language-like, or you can kind of think of them as low-code type of features to do very complex policy the checks. And again, there's several examples in the library for these. On the non-functional side, so things like where we have improved quite a bit, I think, since the last presentation. There were features put in for HA, which Shooting was responsible for. She designed and implemented most of that. So now Kyverno can run active for webhooks, as well as all the controllers will do leader elections and coordinate the work. There's also automated certificate management and webhook management, which is pretty important for something we'll talk about next, which is like to do fail close by default and managing webhooks on a very granular basis based on policies. So yeah, just going more into the security side of things, and I think so. A few things we've done with based on the security self-assessment that John helped lead and work with us, as well as Rory led in the SIG security in the Kubernetes community, a threat model for admission controllers, right? So both of those help dramatically, and we have if you in the security docs, we have identified all of the things an somebody administering Kyverno needs to be aware of, starting with things like roles, secure communications, default network policies, the pod images, which are hardened by default, but just pointing out again what has been done. There's also a lot of activity and ongoing work, including things which have been completed. Our goal is to get to SALSA level 3 for Kyverno. And for that, we have already started signing container images. We've, SBOMs and scan reports are published. We plan to attach those as attestations, and then also kind of continue improving. But going back to one point on the fail closed, policy. So this was a big feature which we put in. So Kyverno now allows very fine-grained configuration of policy defaults. And you can, based on that, the webhooks can fail close by default. And this is possible because it automatically manages webhook filters, etc., for it, right? So I realize we only have about 5 minutes left, so I'm gonna quickly see what else we want to cover. Yeah, one other thing to point out is based on even the prior presentation. So we have adopted the security scorecards. We have been making progress also on this. So there's links in the repo. There's a GitHub issue to track this. When we started, we had a score of about 4, so we brought this up significantly and continue to kind of invest in that. We are interested, in fuzzing as well as other best practices in addition to SALSA, like I mentioned, right? Quick, kind of blurb on the policy library. So there's lots of, sample policies. This is all goodness from the community, and we're always adding new things. So there's several policies which can be quickly searched, managed from this, right? And just last thing to kind of talk about is the roadmap. So, for 1.7, which is the current minor release, several, sort of bug fixes and improvements, but also some major features, especially for mutating and generating existing resources, which was a, commonly requested feature. Several enhancements Sam and I are working on for image verification with other members, other contributors in the community. And we have a pretty active roadmap of things coming up.
I would like to kind of I see a hand up in the chat. So
Yep.
we only have 3 minutes left. So I'm gonna make sure we get to that question, and also maybe just next steps for due diligence. Yeah. Frederick.
Sorry, didn't lower my hand before. You can
So
safely
I can
ignore me.
see hand. Any before I have question time for 1 or 2 questions. Any thoughts from folks?
I think great improvements, Jim. What is on the roadmap?
Yeah, so some of the key roadmaps for 1.7, like I mentioned, it's one of the main features is to generate existing resources for existing configurations. So, like for example, today when a new namespace is created, Kyverno can generate network policies or other defaults. But the feature request was to do that also for existing resources, and similarly for mutating. For image verification, there's several enhancements we're adding where you can now combine information across image verification, as well as like the image config data that we talked about. There's things we're doing to even allow more flexible policy kind of checks. For example, like if you want 2 signatures or if you want an OR rule. So those are some of the things in 1.7. Sam, shooting, any other major features come to mind, or?
Yeah, I think those mutate existing resources one important one. We're gonna add it for 1.7 because we see a lot of requests from the community asking for Kyverno just not run as the mission controller, but to mutate existing resources. So that is, I think it's an interesting one to be seeing for 1.7.
Great. Thank you.
Awesome. So we only have 1 minute left. I would say kind of for due diligence, let's work together with your TOC liaison. We probably
Sure.
have to have a chat, see whether they think that it warrants a full review or just a self-assessment is sufficient. And then if we have to we can work together to kind of give a simple due diligence recommendation.
Sounds good. Yeah, and in the presentation, which is in the meeting notes, I've also linked the due diligence doc. So, you can feel free to ask questions there or on the Kyverno Slack. Happy to kind of answer, and certainly looking forward to engaging.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah, we are at time.
Mhm.
So thank you very much, everyone. Thanks for the great presentations and the great questions.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.